Right. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to episode number 61. Well, Nour, we must be getting old. Episode 61 of Tech Sales Insights, brought to you by Sales Community as well as our awesome sponsor, Gong. We are honored to have Jonathan Martin, president of WECA, with us today. I think we got the West Coast covered. Jonathan's in Malibu. Nour's at a motorcycle conference, full disclosure, in Vegas, and I'm still here in Beaver Creek. We have an awesome title today, which is amazing. We haven't had it up till now, but COVID improving go-to-market. Jonathan has some fantastic insights around that. I've known Jonathan a bit. I'd say not as well as maybe some of our other guests. We overlapped a little bit at HP, so I'd say I know him more from his reputation. He'll go through his background, but CMO at some terrific leading technology companies, and recently came to WECA about 6 months ago. Fortunately enough for me, I'm an investor, and he's done an amazing job at really shaping the go-to-market, the partnerships, kind of their messaging, what they're doing it, how they're doing it. He'll give us, I think, a little bit of insight into their funding and what's going on there. So, Nour, you ready for this?
I'm excited. Jonathan and I are kindred spirits with the motorcycle riding, so I'm looking forward to learning more about his insights.
Perfect. That's great. Jonathan, you ready?
I'm ready. Can't wait. Looking forward to it.
All right. Perfect. Nour, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so Jonathan, great to have you. For our audience who may not know as much about you, would love to just start with a background, where you've been, what you've done, and how you've arrived at WECA.
Totally. So I think, this is my 25th year in storage and infrastructure type companies. Started off at Veritas in product management, product marketing. Was at Salesforce for a little bit. Then was at HP, which is where I met Randy, looking after the storage software team, information management team there, as well as the commercial team, so selling to small, medium enterprise in software. From there, went to EMC, ultimately became CMO up until just about the acquisition of Dell, was the CMO at Pure through going public, and was at Hitachi for a while, also as the CMO. And then that's where I came across WECA. And frankly, I think it was so mind-bending to me that I just had to be part of it. So been here about six months, looking after go-to-market, and it's been an amazing experience so far.
Randy, over to you.
All right, great. And back in your background, I think you, full disclosure, a lot of our guests had started out as telemarketers back in the day, but you actually started as a analyst programmer, right?
I did. So I did a master's in computer science, and everyone that does a master's in computer science, they're all told that they need to be programmers. So I did it for about 3 months, and I realized that if I continued being a programmer, I was going to be very, very poor in my future life. I knew I wanted to do something with tech, and I knew I wanted to do something more with people. So I kind of went into pre-sales and ultimately into product marketing. So yeah, programming, definitely not for me.
Oh, there you go. So how about telling us more about WECA?
Yeah, so WECA, deep tech company out of Israel. We've been going about 7 years now, really focused on building a data platform for modern workloads. So particularly things like artificial intelligence workloads, machine learning workloads, anything that's GPU or using accelerated compute. A lot of organizations obviously kind of been through the kitchen sink exercise of doing the first AI project, the first machine learning project, and now trying to do it at scale. All of them get religion about GPUs, general processing units, from people like NVIDIA, Cerebras, GraphCore, TensorRT, whoever it may be. They deploy those, but they try to do it on traditional data infrastructures. And these CPUs run 10, 100, maybe 1,000 times faster than a regular CPU. And so you need to be able to serve data to those GPUs quickly enough. That's what we do with our data platform. And we really help customers turn science fiction into science fact. So, what they do on traditional architectures, traditional deployments might take them 50 or 100 years. They can do in less than 12 months on WECA.
Wow, there you go. Maybe you can do the reverse with Scotch, 50 year Scotch.
The aging algorithm.
There you go. What about with your, maybe tell us about your recent name change? Losing Vanna White might be upset losing a couple vowels.
Yeah, so just we lost the I and the O, so we're still, our website's still weka.io, but we're trying to streamline and simplify things, and companies are a lot at this stage, so we're kind of through the startup phase. We're definitely into a growth stage company at this point, and they try a lot of things early on, and then you realize that if you can get focus, you can bring simplicity, you can drive accountability, you can resource adequately, like you can get much better scale on a business. And that's very much the kind of the phase that we're in right now.
Wow. And what can you tell us about your kind of funding and revenue numbers? I know you're private.
Yeah, so we're a private company. We don't tend to share revenue numbers. We've just been through a funding round, so supported by Hewlett Packard, by Hitachi, by Cisco, by NVIDIA, a number of other companies. So we have a lot of strategic partners as our backers. We just raised an additional $73 million, which we announced a couple of weeks ago, taking us to about 140 million all in.
Oh, that's great. And what about kind of who do you sell to? These days everybody talks about your ICP.
Yeah. So typically we're selling to people leading at AI projects, and so we're speaking to a lot of chief data officers. We're speaking to a lot of chief innovation officers. We're still selling to VPs of infrastructure, those kind of people. But increasingly, we're getting into more and more like CEO board level discussions. These are the most strategic workloads in an organization. They have a lot of CEO visibility, board level visibility. So we're kind of gradually working up from VP of infrastructure up to the board.
Oh, great.
So, Jonathan, we're talking about COVID, kind of really interestingly enough, improving go-to-market. As you may know, I've spent the last 20 years being a student of business relationships. I'm fascinated by your lens, your perspective on how do you believe COVID has changed relationships, and what do you think it's done to relationships in the enterprise space?
Yeah, so obviously like an incredibly challenging time, professionally, personally, emotionally, mentally, physically, like the unprecedented period of change. And a lot about selling is about relationships. I think a lot about the best sellers are the people that can drive relationships. But those relationships, almost in a matter of 4 or 6 weeks, transform themselves, where pretty much the whole of the buyer's journey, the whole of the go to market in B2B went online. And we spent the last 2 years not physically in rooms, not doing proof of concepts and lunches and on a golf course, but we've spent it here. And there's a great survey last year from McKinsey that was saying 79% of companies, I think it was, that believe that COVID is going to have a permanent impact on go-to-market, and a lot of these changes that have occurred over the last 2 years are going to sustain themselves in the post-COVID era.
Oh, so Nour, I know your passion. We first met. We had your book on relationships, and you could talk literally all day or all week about relationships. What have you found with COVID?
Yeah, I'm actually rewriting Relationship Economics, and it's completely 3rd edition. And I'm talking a lot about hybrid relationships. So the relationships we had in person, we need to find ways to build and nurture digital connections, nurturing ongoing touches with value add with them. Conversely, what we found is relationships you've only built the last 2 years digitally, you better find a way to meet them in person, because we still haven't found a way to engage, influence, shake hands, look them in the eye, and earn that trust digitally yet that you can when we go visit companies or when we have their executives visit us. So you got to find a hybrid way to kind of nurture those along the way. And that I don't think is going to go away. That, I don't know about you guys, I've actually gotten dressed, driven to a building, parked, went up, met them. And the whole time I'm thinking we could have done this over Zoom. So you got to find the right balance between where's a digital and an in person, but it's here to stay.
Totally, and also just looking back the last 6 months as the world has freed up a little bit. some of the crazy gymnastics that you'll go through to actually physically go and meet a person. It's like, I would, in pre-COVID, I would never have got on a plane, go to London, drive for 3 hours just to go meet somebody in a coffee shop for 20 minutes. But now somehow it almost makes sense.
So to build on that, Jonathan, what do you think is done to prospecting beyond relationships we already know or the trust that may be already in place? How do you prospect in this kind of a crazy space? How do you accelerate that traction or that trust when you can't meet them in person?
Yeah. So I think, first thing first, and I'll try and make these based on as kind of practical experience. So first thing is really about the digital platforms that you're using to engage audiences. So there is a tremendous plethora of tools out there now to help you really understand the profile of individuals, of accounts in a way that even 2 or 3 years ago was completely unheard of. So our ability to understand, even basic stuff, like I'll if you're running a new sales campaign around a particular use case, a lot of people, the way that they'd start, they just start knocking on doors and, do you have this use case? Do you have this use case? The ones that were slightly more progressive might go out and do some kind of survey of accounts so that they can get a map of this account has a high propensity for this use case. This has a low propensity for this use case. When you get into the digital realm, you can apply tremendous amounts of data and insight around not just this particular account is searching online for this use case or engaging with the content for this use case, but equally that individuals in an account, and maybe more importantly, because we are, at least at Weka, we're a B2B company, talking about groups of individuals in an account.
That's so valuable to really understand those behaviors, really understand people that are raising their hands and saying, I'm interested in solving the problem that your solution solves. And I've always believed many technologies are event driven. I may not need you today, tomorrow, next week, or next year, but when I do need you, you need to be top of mind and be responsive in what I'm looking for. So switch gears. One of the things that we found is, that many of us have been working from home for years, but it might be new to some people. The challenge is those boundaries we had, right? That of getting in a car and driving into an office or getting on a plane and go and see a prospect. And we had time to think. We had time to disengage. Now it seems to be somebody said, when did we go from working at home to sleeping at work, right? So how do you create that balance? Or do you believe that balance is possible? Because I'm also talking about work-life blending, not balance. But talk a little about those boundaries and where do you make sure that you're investing in a healthy self before you invest in those external relationships?
Totally, and I'll be totally frank. I am not necessarily the best example of getting work-life balance, and it is even pre-COVID something that I had to work as hard professionally on calendaring and scheduling and making sure everything fit in as I did professionally. And I think COVID has only compounded that. So for me, typically I'll get up 5 o'clock in the morning, and that first hour and a half is time that is exclusively for me. And I am super religious at this point that whatever I'm going to do, whether it's exercise, whether it's meditating, whether it's just catching up on life, that's my time. Then I tend to work for a long time. Then I get, end of the day, I also have become very religious about, dinner time, no phones at the dinner table, so you have to play offense on your personal life.
Yeah, well said. And Nour's great book, Curve Benders, which you didn't mention, goes through a lot of these great concepts. So for those watching, definitely feel free to ask any questions or comment. You can put it in the comments section, and we'll make sure that we get to it. Also, I know we're going to be talking more about sales tools in a little bit, but I want to make sure I get the proper plug in to our sponsor, Gong. Gong unlocks reality. They're a sponsor also of sales community for revenue intelligence. But Gong unlocks reality to help people and companies reach their full potential. The patented Gong Revenue Intelligence Platform empowers customer-facing teams to take advantage of their most valuable assets, customer interactions, which the Gong platform automatically captures and analyzes. Gong then delivers insights at scale, empowering revenue and go-to-market teams to determine the best actions for winning outcomes. Tons of great companies use them, lots of the advisory board members. So long story short, definitely can help you sell more. So, and we'll get back to them in a little bit in Jonathan's thoughts. But tell us maybe a little bit about how you handled your sales kickoff, Jonathan.
Yeah, so we were in we've done sales kickoffs virtually for a while, and sales kickoffs virtually kind of they worked okay, right? But you miss, obviously you can learn stuff, you can get inspired by them, but you miss the networking and the engagement piece. So we were really lucky that we managed to do an in-person sales kickoff in Arizona at the start of December. We kind of got the window 2 weeks maybe before Omicron. A lot of these people never met each other, and said, I would say significant majority, 90% of people never met each other physically. So we knew just getting people in a room together was gonna be a pretty magical experience. And we honestly, we have a great story. We have a great CEO, and I'm not just saying that because he's my boss. We have we were, I think, able to do exactly what you're supposed to do in a sales kickoff. Wind people up to the point that they just they didn't use the door on the exit. They just ran straight through the wall and into their accounts.
Yeah, and Erico commented, when do we go from working at home to sleeping at work? Love it, Nour. So I know it's crazy times. Any other? You did a great job talking about how COVID really, I think, helped accelerate and improve your go-to-market. Any other comments around that?
Yeah, so I think that the big one for just looking at how this has evolved is pre-COVID. We all went to school. We all read the books and the websites about the sales and the marketing funnel as this very, very linear thing, right? Which was awareness drives purchase consideration. Purchase consideration will drive a lead or an opportunity, which translates into revenue. Then it goes over to customer success and ultimately back to marketing. So it's this I'm sure it was never as serial as it was deployed at school, but it was just a series of baton passes from marketing to sales to customer success and back to marketing. And I think the thing is, everything's gone almost 100% digital the last 2 years or so. All of those channels are still working, but now they're working in parallel rather than in serial mode. So in the last 2 years, where we've all sat in Zoom or Teams or wherever it be, you've done enough sales call to know that the person on the other end is in real time fact checking the emotional decisions they're making on the call in 2 or 3 other browser windows. That didn't, and at the same time as they're doing some kind of research, they're also in the mode of purchase consideration and maybe even deployment all at the same time.
So speaking of fact checking, at the presidential level that you're in, how are you able to kind of inspect the forecast accuracy, deals, kind of getting in the weeds on some of that?
Totally. So we do a lot through technology right now. So like everybody else, we use Salesforce. Recently, we've rolled out Clary, which has been, I think, expansive for us. We tend to, like my level, I tend to care more about probably deals and territories than I do individual reps. So that's tend to be where I spend my time. In our space, one of the things that has been new is we're now dealing with supply chain and the challenges of supply chain, as we all are, both in our personal and our professional lives. And that is, I think, an extra level of inspection that, even when you've got the piece of paper, are you actually able to fulfill the piece of paper? And luckily, we work with some great companies around the world to be able to do that.
Great, Nour.
Randy, I don't know if you saw or not, but Clary just raised $225 million backed by Blackstone. So
Right.
there's definitely interest in the space and the impact somebody like those guys are having.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. And then, so with the supply chain, then I would imagine kind of being a smaller player, you certainly have some great strategics, but that's got to be a lot of hoops you have to try and jump through, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, and for us, our routes to market are kind of unusual. So a lot of people in our space sell directly through resellers. We sell through strategic partners. So think, HPE, Hitachi, Supermicro, AWS. So they all reseller comped and quoted on selling the product. So a lot of the time, it's really fighting, for getting mind share in those organizations and making sure that we are able to get the hardware to ship out.
Great. We have a question from Frederick. Thank you, Frederick. And again, for those watching, feel free to keep asking questions or commenting. Frederick asks, how do you build relationships in a business casual environment, events and conferences in this digital world? Most of our business came from those conversations.
Yeah. So I think, one thing is to ensure that those moments in time, those business casual environments, the virtual events, the virtual conferences, that you're as informed as possible when you go into that conversation. So it's not like hanging out at a real trade show, where you can be like, hey, nice backpack. Where do you get it from? Like, ever heard of Weka? Like, you don't have the opportunity to do that. So the difference is, again, in a digital realm, you can bring a tremendous amount of background to the conversation. So a lot of the time, the people that are going to be at the virtual event. For each of those people, if you're using products like Demandbase or something like that, you can gather a tremendous amount of information about what that individual it has an interest in or a propensity for, the types of projects that they're doing in that organization, the things that are going to drive interest inside the organization. So when you turn up for that 10 minutes or five minutes, you can be way more informed than you could ever be in the physical world. And then when you blend in other tools, you can capture information, obviously, from social media, from blog posts, from blah, 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 blah. And so you end up getting a very, very rounded, psychographic profile of the individual, which allows you to have a much more informed conversation than you'd be able to do in a real world environment.
Randy, one of the things I'm a big fan of is, and I taught my kids this years ago, learn to anticipate, learn to pick up on their existing actions, behaviors, what they're doing. So social listening, incredibly impactful. Some of the digital things that Jonathan brought up, really insightful in to anticipate their next steps, their next kind of need, their next want. What are they going to want next in how they buy and what they buy, and the social proof and the credibility. And by the way, it's less about you, more about how they're better off because of you. So if you listen louder, right? If you become more intentional in really solving their problems, it's amazing the insights they'll give you to really help anticipate their next steps. And to comment on Frederick's, that's exactly what digital can help you do, is anticipate what will they need from you from the relationship next.
Yeah, and also as we go, we're all going around the internet. We leave a trail of our wants, likes, desires, interests, that if you can get the technology in place to allow you to co-opt all of that and make sense of it, you can have incredibly insightful conversations and engagements with individuals and accounts.
So Jonathan, I have a question on the Weka business model. Does it lend itself to channels and partners? If so, do you have any? And what makes the channel relationship successful in your ecosystem?
That's great. Great. You are a good straight man, David. So this is like a big push for us this year. So last year, the last couple of years, we really focused on our strategic partners, HPE, NVIDIA, AWS, etc., and we've sold to and through those organizations. This year, obviously, we all know resellers have tremendous relationships with the best and brightest accounts in the world. So we have a big focus on this year engaging with the reseller channel, probably in the second half of the year, doing more with global system integrators. There is a tremendous amount of momentum around AI and machine learning, kind of modern workload projects. A lot of people are still learning about it, getting educated on it. Some people are very boutique on it. So yeah, I think for us and frankly for all of us, big opportunity in AI and machine learning through the channel this year.
So that's great. I know a topic, and I got to tell you, Randy Seidel has a love-hate relationship between sales and marketing. So this next question is focused on.
I can't imagine that ever being
right? Can you imagine that? Thinking about MarTech, thinking about
talking to the CMO.
Right. So right. So talking about RevTech, sales tech, talk about RevOps and sales ops. What tools are you using? How do you, I think I have a partner, Jen Kors, that leads our RevOps practice, and I think we talked last time in our podcast on some 8,000 MarTech tools that are out there now, and some 250 sales tech tools that are out there. So give us a glimpse into what do you like, what do you look at, what do you believe will make a material impact on your business?
Yeah. So I think first one is organizational design. So in pretty much every org that I've ever been in, you have a sales ops team and a marketing ops team and a customer ops team. And they all start off as these very, very, very distinct organizations. But as the business begins to gain momentum, as the flywheel begins to turn, they become more and more and more interdependent upon each other. And they all want access to the same data. And so, probably three or four times I've lived this movie where sales wants access to all marketing and customer success data to understand customers better. Marketing wants access to sales and customer success data to understand customers better. And so at Weka, we don't have individual teams. We have a go-to-market ops team. And that's a shared service that goes across sales, marketing, and customer success. And that means that we're using same policies, same procedures, same tech stack. When we talk about customers, it's the same customers with the same definitions. We're all using the same definition of a pipeline, blah, 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 blah. Because for us at this phase, we need to optimize for speed and scale. And we want to reduce the number of handoffs between functions to allow us to do that. In terms of the tech, we use, we're a huge Gong user. We're a Salesforce shop, as I think everyone is on the planet. We're a huge Gong user, not just because they're a sponsor today, but they're an awesome company. If you've not checked out Gong, go check it out. We use it all the ways that Randy described at the top. We also use it a lot for enablement, actually. It is incredible the insights that you can pull, learning from, again, digital era when people don't get to shadow each other so much and all those sort of things. Incredible amount of insight just watching a great seller do their thing with a customer and sharing that around the organization. So we are very, very avid users of Gong to learn from each other, learn how to sell, test messages, test plays. It's an incredible tool. On top of that, we've used Atrium for a while. We're now shifting over to Clary. Again, it's reasonably early in our deployment of Clary. But absolutely loving the insight and all the AI and intelligence that comes from that. We use a lot of demand base. I think really for getting digital insights and being able to serve programs and content that's very specific to individuals and accounts. And then most recently, we've started to use a company called Qualified, which again, for those of you may not have come across this technology, can absolutely, no way endorsed by them or paid money. It's just incredible technology for BDRs to have really deep, meaningful conversations with accounts when they arrive on your website. And and I can spend a little bit more time on it later on if we have time.
No,
but
no, that sounds great. Question of you is, have you found it challenging to make all of these disparate apps work together, or is that what the go-to-market ops team is doing?
That's exactly what the go-to-market ops team is doing.
Randy,
Gotcha.
over to you.
Yeah, so you probably have an interesting perspective because, back in the day, you go back 10 years ago, you had LinkedIn and you had Salesforce. Now you've got all these hundreds and thousands. And maybe you can look at it through a lens of Gong. Kind of when did you first use Gong? Kind of what was that journey like? And any other perspectives around kind of how the tech stack has evolved?
Yeah, so Gong kind of predates my time. I'm still relatively new. I've been here maybe 6 months, but I think we've been using Gong for 15 or 18 months at this point. We're maybe in an unusual position because we share one of our early investors was also an early investor in Gong. And so that's, I believe, how we got introduced to Gong. Funny how that happens very frequently. But like it's gone. It is gone everywhere. We use it. It is a daily tool that is in the toolbox, not just for the sales team, but for the marketing team, the customer success team. Like we Gong everything, internal, external. We do it all. A lot of the analytics that are in the tool on the back end, a lot of the video analytics, that area really developing very significantly at the moment. So it's been really great experience for us.
Just a quick follow-up question. You talked about the org structure.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the CRO, CMO? Do you have that integrated between? So from a leadership, sales and marketing leadership, what's your philosophy on that front?
So we kind of tend to, our customer base tends to be largest customers in the world. So we're really more of a global 500, global 1,000 play than we are a global 10,000 play. So that means that we tend to squad sales, marketing, and customer success around particular accounts. So our motion is very, very much rifle shots rather than shotgun blasts. We are extremely surgical in not only the accounts that we choose, but when we choose to engage with those accounts based on their propensity to buy. We're still a relatively small organization. Resources are obviously finite. So we need to be surgical in the application of resource in accounts.
Yeah. And you've done a great job too, I've noticed, over the years, really pivoting and changing. I mean, what kind of you started off with early years, I'd go on, kind of beta, customer calls with Omri, from that to where you are today. And I would imagine it's an ongoing challenge for kind of sales and marketing team. Okay, last year we did this, now we're doing this, now we're doing this. And it's obviously all moving up and to the right, but that's a lot to handle.
It's like even in 6 months, it feels like I've been in 3 versions of this business already. Like it is moving at absolutely like breakneck pace. And so, communications are, a lot of people talk about that they're, a sales-led organization, or they have the cult of this, that, or the other. I think for us, we are very much focused on customer success and the success of customers, and that takes a village. It's not a sales job or a marketing job or an engineering job or a pre-sales job. Like it takes a village to make customers truly successful.
Yeah. Do you separate out that kind of customer success function, kind of given your size?
Yeah, we have a dedicated customer success team. So we do all the traditional things that you'd expect in a technical support type organization, but we do a lot of technical account management in there. We do a lot of consulting in there, those kind of things.
Well, that's great. Do you use sorry, on that, do you use Gainsight or any tools in that space? Or
we do. We are right in the midst of our first Gainsight implementation as well. Also, I'm sure many people out there using it, but Mega Technology used it in a number of companies previously.
Great.
Jonathan, let's continue that path on talent. One of the things Randy and I've talked a lot about is exceptional talent is always difficult. It seems like it's exasperated that much more amongst this pandemic. Give us a glimpse into your philosophy about how do you look for great talent? What are you doing to attract them, retain them? Obviously, they have a lot of other options, a lot of other choices. So talk to us a little about your lens on talent.
Yeah, so we, again, context here, we try to grow our go-to-market team by 5x last year. We're going to do something similar again this year. So hiring is a massive piece of just day-to-day life here. You're absolutely right. It is the one of the most challenging things to do right now, and it is the battle for talent is super challenging. We want to be able to move quickly, and so we're using people's network as a way to screen talent. So we right now, outside of a couple of things here and there, we're not out using recruiters. We're using talent, and we are, at least to this point, able to get the scale and speed that we need by going out and getting the best talent that we can through other people.
Not that there's anything wrong with recruiters, of course.
Nothing wrong with recruiters at all.
You knew that was coming. You knew that was coming.
Absolutely. Like, you used them in the past, we'll use them in the future. Are using them now for certain roles. So I love you all. Thank you for all your help in the past. But we are, one thing you do find is, like, great talent attracts great talent. And, there are a couple of individuals in the organization that I can point to that have had an absolutely magnetic attraction for fantastic talent. And these are not just people that are in leadership positions, but, reps in the field. And people are like, oh, that individual went to WECA, like, piques my interest, must be something there, because I know that they are an amazing rep.
How would you describe the WECA culture? And I want to come to that question in a second. How do you describe the WECA culture?
Yeah, that's a great one. So we're an Israeli company, and so but headquartered in Silicon Valley. So it's kind of a mix of the two. From Israel, it gets directness, it gets urgency, it gets intensive focus, which I think are three great attributes that we get from the team over there. A little bit of sticker shock for people when they come in. Sometimes they're like, "Whoa, that was pretty direct." But I personally I love that, because it means that you don't have to second guess anybody, right? But I think what I would describe the culture as very open, very direct, over communication, absolute, like, cult-like focus on the success of customers, and genuine sharing, openness, willingness to learn from each other and learn from each other, frankly.
That's great. And it probably helps where you have I'm going to forget, probably naming names, you forgot who you forgot, but Omri early on as a founder, Laron as CEO, not just being super Israeli military engineering centric, but actually having that go-to-market sense and that customer sense. Because a lot of times you'll have the profile, the kind of technical startups, and totally. They know what's right for customers. They're not listening. But I think you've continued to evolve, figuring out that product market fit, what's right for the customers, how do you partner, how do you pay fairly for kind of what you need to do, and reward accordingly, which does not always happen.
Totally, yeah. So very, very lucky that we have three founders, Omri, Mayor, and Liron here. Very, very, like, hyper bright, very, very well-rounded individuals. And then I think, the thing that we've tried to bring the last 6 months is focus in the organization. Yes, it is possible that, we can do everything, because all founders believe, or most founders believe, that everything is possible, but really kind of ratcheting it down to, it's hard to scale everything. So how do you pick the certain use cases that you have the highest propensity to be successful in? How do you drive accountability into the farthest reaches of the organization? And then how do you adequately resource the functions to get the scale that you need?
Great. So from Frederick, we have a question, the old asking for a friend question. In a startup with the need to grow sales, do you need or hire the CRO or the CMO first? While you're thinking about it, I'll take a pass at it. This came across, I was talking to somebody that's got an earlier stage sales tech stack company, and that person was going to just hire a kind of, I'll say a lower cost rep for cost reasons. And I said, I think it's worth, and you're totally fine to disagree with my answer, by the way, but I said, if I were you, I would hire a player coach sales leader who can get in the weeds now, that can help grow and evolve the organization, and ideally have some of these sales analytics tool, because then you have somebody that's very customer centric, customer facing, kind of figuring it out. And then over time, you can figure out the marketing side. You can hire in other people around that person. What's your take?
I concur, Randy. So I would say, obviously, three primary stages of a company is, number one, you need something to sell. So focus on engineering, product development.
That helps a lot. Yeah.
That helps. Minimal viable product, right? And then second thing is, once you've got the minimum viable product, you need to go get the first 10 customers. Enterprise B2B, that is a salesperson with, I know we don't use Rolodex, with a great LinkedIn portfolio that is, I was going to say Rolodex, that is able to go and help you knock down those first 10 accounts. From that point on, it's about driving scale and efficiency, which is at which point you should go hire a marketing person, because it will make the reps much more efficient in terms of they're not having to find every opportunity themselves. And it will create air cover so that when a rep goes into an account, they don't spend the first 20 minutes explaining who on earth your company is.
For our younger audience, when Randy and I had hair, Rolodex was this physical thing that you would flip, and we would staple business cards to it. And it was a gem. I missed those days. It was a gem. So Jonathan, I want to thank Frederick for that question, but I want to go back to something you said earlier, and I love this. ICP, you said, are kind of those data scientists, chief data officers. And then I really appreciate your comment about, due to limited resources, we're very surgical about the accounts that we focus on. So how do you decide on your ICP to kind of choose those surgical accounts? Tell us, I love that propensity to buy. Tell us a little more about that, because again, on any given day, you could talk to a lot of different accounts, a lot of different relationships. How do you really ascertain the focus on that, whether it's that first accounts or the scale?
Totally. So I think, first step, and we're in the luxurious position where we're not looking for our first customers, but we're getting to the point where we have enough customers. And it's like in the early days, it's like, give me a project, any project, like, have I got the solution for you? That's like standard startup mentality. And then you get to a point that you realize that you're more successful in customers of one type than another, more successful in a certain segment than another, more successful selling to this kind of economic buyer over that kind of technical buyer. So patterns begin to emerge in your customers. So the first thing is really take a look back to take a look forward. Take a look back into the customers that you've already done, the sales that you've already done, and try and find the patterns. Second thing then is, in those patterns, really get your arms around use cases. We did an exercise here the first couple of weeks I was here about, what use cases could we sell into, and in a 2-hour discussion we came up with 68. You can't sell to 68 use cases as a Series C company. I think at that time it was almost, one use case for every 2 people in the company. And so you ratchet it down in terms of, through 2 lenses, from a product fit and from a market readiness fit. How do you stack up? You can do simple 5-star scoring mechanism to do it. And what you'll realize is certain use cases begin to bubble up. From that point, it's really about how do you go and institutionalize chasing those use cases. So again, a lot of digital tools out there to help you find. So for us, we found there's 3 use cases where we're wildly successful. One is anything to do with accelerated compute GPUs. So anyone that's bought something from NVIDIA or GraphCore or TensorTorrent or whoever it may be. Second one is anything to do with life sciences, structural biology, computational chemistry, DNA sequencing, those kind of things. And then the third thing is around people taking concepts from scientific and high performance computing and applying them in commercial settings, commercial organizations. And so we got 68 down to 3. And then you just go hunt for those organizations. So now it's almost as easy as, is there anybody that we find on the internet that is actively looking for GPUs? If they are, then we go gangbusters on engaging that account through every single channel we have available to us, which is, virtual events, conferences, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Facebook, golf, lunch, we use every channel.
There you go. I did a earlier today with Sixth Sense, a kind of webinar. So if you think about, the question around, ICP, I don't think a terminus that use or demand base is kind of as broad, but that's where a lot of these tools can kind of automate. If you're coming in, running sales, to figure out the ICP, where they're coming from, how they're doing it, how do you score if you've got limited reps? Okay, kind of how do you score based on all the different propensities and everything else to be able to go after them, marry that up with a qualified. So that kind of helps feed into, if I'm a rep or I'm a sales leader, kind of what is the ICP specific folks that we're going after, correct?
Totally. Yeah, and so it's, in a lot of startups, the idea to action cycle is incredibly short. And I'd encourage everybody to spend a little bit more time on the ideation, data, and strategy end of things before jumping to action. Because if you can jump to action, or when you do jump to action, it will make it much, much more efficient.
Great. And another one, they're don't have any affiliation today with the sales community, but TechTarget is another one, right? Where you're able to, that you use, where you say, okay, somebody that fits this profile, that goes to their site, that asks about ABC, boom, that lead goes over to you, and chances are that's something worth following up on, correct?
Totally. Yeah, great set of tools. Obviously, been in the industry a long time. I've been a big user. I'm still a big user of them. I think there's a lot of new tools that we can use to augment things like TechTarget now, to be able to do it rather than just the sites that they're on, but to do it just more broadly across the internet.
Wow. So changing here, we get a lot of SDRs and BDRs that are early in their career. You've got a BDR function. Maybe kind of explain, how that works.
Yeah. So we have a BDR functions run by Sarah Herchick. She is an amazing leader here. We really blend the marketing demand gen team and the BDR team into one, both common set of metrics, common set of goals, common focus, and we, again, many organizations have seen, hey, marketing's off chasing one segment, the BDRs are chasing another segment. So we orchestrate a lot more that the marketing team, the BDR team are working in concert on the same accounts at the same time with a common set of outcomes and goals.
That's great. And we're not allowed to ask about age. So are your BDRs kind of a where that in terms of their career.
They're
career
earlier in their career, and I've always felt that doing a BDR type job or an insight, it is such an amazing learning ground to build a career either in sales or in marketing. You learn how to sell. You get to observe other sellers who are tremendous at doing it. You learn about how customers work and like what all these different titles mean. Yeah. It is a great learning ground. And honestly, a lot of the best reps that I've ever seen started in as BDRs.
Absolutely. So if I'm a BDR and itching to say, okay, I assume the next progression is to be kind of an outside rep. Kind of what's your advice to me?
Yeah, what 100. So we tend to have an intermediate step. So we have a BDR, and then we have an inside team, and we pair the inside team with an external team. So they'll, again, focused on particular accounts. You'll have an inside and an outside rep. They get to take what they know and bridge it into where they want to go. And they work with an external AE, and at some point they are ready to fully take flight and take the outside job, and it's a very seamless transition.
Great.
Randy, in many ways,
if they're listening, hopefully they're knocking on your door, Andrew's or Barbara's.
We are hiring a lot of BDRs, so please send me your resume.
Yeah, feel free to put any. No plug is too shameless. So
exactly.
I love it, Randy. I miss in some ways the EMC hunting school, right? To teach these young BDRs how to be. I think a 2022 version of that would be invaluable, of how to use the digital tools to really make that cold calling, prospecting top of the funnel. And if they really become passionate about it, I think they become invaluable to the organization of find the right opportunities to talk to. Jonathan, switch gears. One of the things that I've spoken with Randy about is I'm a big believer that we're all products of the advice we take.
100%.
So can you comment on mentors in your journey that really left an indelible imprint on you, and maybe one or two of the advice that have stayed with you over the years?
Yeah. So first one was my first sales leader, a guy called Neil Harvey. Still goes by the nickname the Badger, because he was good at finding opportunities anywhere. And yeah, just, I was super young. I was like 25, 26. It was early days at Open Vision Veritas. And I learned so much through osmosis from this individual. Like he looked the part. He was amazing with people. He had like a second sense on what made people tick. And I realized very quickly that not even by any direction, I was just learning so much early on my career by being around somebody that was 10 or 15 years ahead of me and really good at what they did. And that's really been one of my career goals from that point on, is I want to work for somebody and with people that I can learn a lot from. And just being in that environment just kind of ups your game. I think the best bit of advice, or the bit of advice that I always remember from him, is he said the golden rule in sales is you were born with 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in those proportions.
That's great. So well said. So Eric asks, Jonathan, do you prefer early career or will you hire straight from college? And I guess the context would be for the BDRs, and then likewise for outside reps.
So we do both, or I'll say historically, other companies we've done both. We've done people that are on there, maybe their first, second job, or second, third job out of school. Equally, we've run college-based programs that do tremendously well. So I don't think I tend to have a preference on whether you've done multiple jobs or not. What I do have a preference on is your appetite and your aptitude and your attitude for doing that role.
Great. And Colette chimes in, says IDC is that kind of program for college grads. My daughter is a BDR for them right now and learning a lot. So my guess is if Colette's daughter goes and looks up to see what IDC says about WECA, they'll say great things, and she should reach out to you for a job.
Yeah. Yeah, good. I'm in.
That's fantastic. So Jonathan, one of our favorite things to talk about at this podcast is favorite Randy stories. Remember, I pay cash the better they are, but keep it family oriented. Do you have a good Randy Seidel story you could share?
I don't, as I said, like Randy and I kind of knew each other at HP. He was, I always knew him as this kind of larger than life character who slightly terrified me.
People say that all I'm like a puppy.
As I got to know him a bit better, he's a pussycat. So
yeah.
Very true.
So I don't have a great story, but I guess the story is don't judge a book by its cover.
And for those that don't know,
yeah,
heart of gold. He's got a heart of gold as you do get to know.
Yeah, amazing. So then Colette chimes in and says yes, yes, research. And Tucker, as I'm wrapping up here, Tucker's behind the scenes helping us. Eric Coe says rappelling down at sales kickoff in Orlando. Yeah. After no sleep. Okay. Anyway, Tucker, if you can maybe post the link for the newsletter, that would be helpful as I wrap up here. But next week we are on episode number 62. Mitch Breen, who's a longtime friend back from EMC days, is CRO of Infoblocks. I'm sure that will likewise be very engaging. Lots of great information. Jonathan, certainly wish you great continued success with WECA. It's amazing how you pivot and go and grow, and you've got some amazing strategics as investors. But as you know, it's all about, I guess, ARR these days. And Matt Gruen just jumped in and said Jonathan has helped usher in a culture of focus, both for the products and individual roles. And then, okay, he's asking a question here. If you want to answer quick, on what should sellers in different roles focus on?
Well, we can discuss it in your next one-on-one, Matt, if you want. But ultimately, obviously, it's simple, right? It doesn't matter what selling you role you're in. The ultimate measure of success is pipeline, is revenue, is being able to stack as much up as you can at the top so that you're successful down at the bottom. So,
all right. Great way to wrap. So Nour, thank you very much. Enjoy Vegas. Be careful, please, on your motorcycle. And Jonathan, you have a great rest of week, and more importantly, fantastic 2022. Look forward to helping you any way I can.
Thanks so much, and thanks for the opportunity today. Great to talk to you.